Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Halloween, mother. Anyways, I just thought I'd get with the festive spirit. Had to bring out the old tools for today, and of course, introduce you to the boy Chucky. You know, this is it's a collectible. You know, I brought it for my daughter. To be honest with you, she saw it and was like, "Daddy, can you get the Chucky with the knife with the blood on it?" I was like, "Yeah, baby." That's exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, these are, I use these only once a year for, of course, I don't know if Mike's going to be losing his shit with this, but anyways, yeah, I use them once a year, and, you know, to purge. You guys know what that story is about. And, you know, just take out people we don't like, and also take out people that remind us of people that we don't like. So yeah, it's one of them ones. But happy Halloween, guys. So we're gonna put these back down. We're gonna entertain you with good old Chucky today. So yeah, Tino slashing prices. Yeah, that's something that we could be doing, ladies and gentlemen. But I thought, you know, get with the festive spirit. Last year we had Sam, and he was stood in the background, but you know, never mind. But I think I've done all right for a makeshift, quick shift. You know, 2 seconds. Anyways, what's going on? Thought you were going to say people you don't like, and yeah, if you don't like and subscribe, you're getting the axe. You know, that's it. You're getting axed off the channel. So what is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome. Yes, it is the festive spirit of Halloween and all those fun and games and what have you. But of course, today is a big day. And that day is options expiry. Is it going to be a bloodbath? What do you think, bro? I'm losing my shit, man, talking to this guy. Apparently, it does actually... No, it doesn't. The batteries are not in. But anyways, so what do we know? Well, we have had a storming earnings announcement from Amazon. Up 13% in pre-markets, ladies and gents. That is absolutely wild. There's all-time high, and then there's can't fit it in the screen. It's gone beyond. That's great news. And this is the problem that we've got. The markets are not trading technicals. They are trading sentiment. All it takes is one sour thing. I mean, we thought that Meta, given the fact that they've had to borrow money to service their ventures in investments, investors aren't really liking that idea. But then let's just think about it. Interest rates are coming down, yeah? Are we going into quantitative easing? That's usually what you do, is you borrow money. Why is everything going up? Because the cost of business is going to be going down. So why would investors not be happy with the idea of Meta actually borrowing money? Investors will then start looking at it and saying, oh, might not be great with its balances or cash in the bank and what have you. In my opinion, I think Meta is sitting very, very comfortably, and Zuckerberg will always be taking a risk. But from Amazon's perspective, it is actually awesome. Now, is the market going to quickly engage in the idea that, okay, Amazon's at all-time highs, tech market has been given what it needs, and Nvidia has been getting all these awesome partnerships in Korea and what have you. Why isn't everything continuing up? Why isn't Bitcoin going up? Well, I'm going to break down a little bit of a logic for you all, ladies and gentlemen, and put it into perspective so that we understand exactly what we're dealing with going into Friday, because it is a big day for crypto. Good old options expiry, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely. What? What is going on? No. Where is it? I don't believe it. Oh, there it is. Happy days. So, massive options expiry puts Bitcoin's next breakout to the ultimate test. What test is that, you say? A couple of guys are talking about it, and they're saying that Bitcoin needs to Michael van de Pope. Sorry if I'm not saying it, bro. But it says here, Bitcoin needs to break 112,000, and that's the crucial level before a new all-time high. Mentioned it before, and it's still valid. I do think we'll see a new all-time high in November. Okay, cool. So that's the logic right there. Quickly going over into it, you see the NASDAQ taking that nice little pop to the upside. And we're going over to Bitcoin right now, and you can see that it's just slowly climbing upwards, okay? And in reference to yesterday's story, talking about the idea that the market maker himself is in a situation where he is negative gamma, which means that if Bitcoin does sustain the 111,000, then he is then going to be forced to get to delta neutral by spot buying and effectively squeezing price to the upside. So he'll get aggressive in buying spot Bitcoin just so that he can cover himself based on the options he previously sold to clients. Okay. Now, if Bitcoin does not succeed the 112,000, which actually it's 111 that the market maker's got the exposure from, then we're going to have ourselves a little bit of a problem. That could equally mean that Bitcoin could be rolling over into the sub areas of 107, 106. But as long as it stays between 111 and, of course, 100,000, then it's all good, which is why I'm saying to you all, just make sure that if you are going to be trading Bitcoin, then just make sure you're taking advantage of any price movements, whether it's between a $2,000 move or a $5,000 move. You're effectively playing a range where the market maker is going to set the tone for Bitcoin in the near future, okay? So we want to see 111,000, but the only way that we can see 111,000 if there is interest coming in. Problem is the ETF is starting, the ETF is starting to show some interesting behavior. We've just had a few hours ago, starting from, BlackRock is now starting to plant Bitcoin into Coinbase Prime Deposit, and he's put quite a bit, and also a little bit of Ethereum as well. So we've seen some movement off the ETF itself, and I believe that this is what's going on. A lot of investors are starting to see that the tech market is actually coming through and delivering results. Quickly going over into Amazon's share price right now, and you can see over here, where's Amazon? Come on, T, where are you? I don't know why it does this to me every single time. There you go. Here's Amazon. So this was Amazon's price before its news announcements at $222, and it's currently gapped up nearly 13% out of hours to $252. It is up there, another $1 trillion market, well, $4 trillion market cap stock. $252 a share. It's at all-time highs, massive gap. And this is back on what? Cloud-based services. So Amazon is just absolutely killing it. We go over to Apple as well. We can see Apple is also gapping up at the open. We're $277.50 a share. I mean, guys, this thing is it's just not stopping. Just look at them. All-time highs. The Mag 7 are all-time highs with the exception of Meta, because Meta is not really doing too great. Currently gapping just a little bit lower at the open, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing to be too concerned, or gapping up a little bit at the open. But in my opinion, I just think it's another opportunity to take advantage of a little bit of a discount on Meta itself. But overall, going into the NASDAQ, just to put it into perspective for you all, we have got the NASDAQ trading in a very interesting, tricky range right now. It's just swept the Asian session ranges. I'll just bring that up for you. Hold on, what the hell? It always does this to me. Oh, shit. There you go. Yeah. NASDAQ has swept the Asian session range with quite an aggressive move up, stopping volume candle. We've got an imbalance down here, which was from yesterday's price action, which I'm not really too keen about in regards to the NASDAQ. Really need to see it starting to mark higher, okay? But the biggest consensus is it's set for that. Amazon has just given the tech market the lifeline. So the question is it going to then follow over into crypto? And this is what I'm saying. A lot of investors, in my opinion, that are tied up into the ETF are starting to see that they're missing out on gains that are happening in the stock market. They are rotating out of Bitcoin and going into the stock market. Because remember, your ETF is made up of what? It's made up of Wall Street, and that's simple as that. Quickly going into the asset inflows, outflows, you can see that we had 806 only a couple of days ago. Now we're at 802, ladies and gentlemen. So they're offloading a relatively decent amount of Bitcoin, but it's still at 800,000, man. There's no real problem with it. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But with that being said, you really want to see the NASDAQ moving up and Bitcoin moving up to suggest that everything is all good. But I think there's a rotation that Wall Street is getting out of crypto and going into the stock market because the legacy markets will always reign supreme. Now, quickly going into the high block to understand where we are with open interest on why it's so important for Bitcoin. You see this area here, it's 111,622, and then you've got this 112,685. These are two bouts of open interest that have come into play with Bitcoin. Obviously, we want to see this one get taken, okay? So if you're able to capitalize and Bitcoin does succeed at taking out the 111,000 and then the spot buying happens from the market maker, the logic says that Bitcoin would only next travel towards its all-time high range, where we could see resistances coming in at 121,000. So from 111 to 121, ladies and gentlemen, you can't complain. Nice little 10 grand move on Bitcoin. You're buying it now and then you're selling it at that point. What's it going to take for that situation to happen? Well, bit of a problem. Expectation of the interest rates have actually come down now. 67%. It was at 72 yesterday. So now they were coming down. And that's not really a good sign, because everyone's like, hold on a sec. Did Jerome Powell say that we might not get the rate cuts in December? So then that takes us into January. And now January is looking like it's going to be at the 3.5, 3.75%, but the bets are all over the spot. Okay, there's nothing consistent, but the real one will be identified once we understand where we are with December's rate cut. We've got no data coming out. Today, I do believe that we are going to have the Chicago PMI coming out at 1:45 UK time. So that's the only real data that's coming out today. But other than that, we don't have anything else other than, of course, the just the manufacturing data for China and the GDP for the Canadian dollar, which has already been released per se. Here we go. So manufacturing PMI for China has contracted down to 49. And of course, the GDP is minus 0.3% and for the Canadian dollar. And that is a little bit of a problem for Canada, especially when Trump now is like, I am not interested in doing any deals with you per se. Okay. So quickly going over into the order flow of Bitcoin, got a little bit of a problem, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, we had someone wake up last night and they woke up with a very handsome amount of Bitcoin. Quickly going into it, let me just find it for you. It was roughly around here where we saw $67 million worth of Bitcoin. No, there we go. $63 million worth of Bitcoin is currently stacked at the 106,822. Okay. Now, as I said to you before, when you're focusing on the order flow, these are resting orders in the market. And you've got to pay attention to the resting orders because it gives you a picture of where the commitment lies. Okay. Doesn't matter what that order is, it's where the commitment is. And the market is going to then navigate and say, okay, you know what, let's try and see if we can go towards that point. And if there is no real participation from offers to the upside, then we can only assume that the next logical spot would be to an area where we can grab interest. Looking at the chart right now, you can see that we don't really have that much happening in terms of the offers or the bids. And the bids are mainly down here at these lows where we did see quite a bit of interest coming into play, like 10 million here at 106,532. And then we saw another 12 million right there at 106,000. Where is it? 100. Yeah. Come on. I flipping hate this, man. Every single time it behaves like a flipping. What was this one? Yeah, that was 25 million at 109,288. So it's evident that the area of interest is inside of this 106,000 zone. Okay. Now, once the options expiry comes into play, then we're going to truly understand if the market maker is in favor of marking prices higher or he's going to be forced to. Remember, it's certain strike prices that the market maker is going to behave a certain way with. All right. We break 111, market makers forced to go spot to get delta neutral. Okay. If we keep coming down and we keep witnessing Bitcoin's price going lower, we can assume that if it does get to 100K, Mr. Market Maker will be forced to sell into the underlying, which means selling into the weakness, which is going to force prices down. Now, how fast is a different story. Okay. But those are two key points, which is why I'm saying to you as a game plan, when you are looking to try and trade Bitcoin in and around these ranges, your 111 and then your 100,000. I mean, 100,000 is all the way down here. Okay. So we've got $11,000 worth of movement that we got to wait for. Okay. So the only thing that you can really do is just take the midpoint of it and say to yourself, let's just say at around 105-ish. Okay, let's go 105,000. Yeah, let's just say around 105 is an area where if Bitcoin were to lose the 105K, then we are starting to work our way to the downside. Okay, but as it stands right now, it's holding at the 110 and it's doing okay. We really need to see the 111 coming in. And if we see the NASDAQ pumping up, strong chance Bitcoin is more than likely going to do it. But we have seen a rotation in investors because they'll sell their Bitcoin to go into the stock market. Okay, so that's something you've got to take into consideration. Solana, she's done relatively well to take a move to the downside from the previous week's loss down at the 23rd of October. It's done the sweep, but hasn't taken the liquidity, and it's now marked up, done a nice little reversal to the top side of the 50 EMA, and now we've got this red vector candle coming into play as well. Now, Ethereum, same story. She's moving a little bit slower. And Fundstrat Tom Lee gave a breakdown on the differences between Ethereum and Bitcoin. And he says that if you bought Bitcoin for $1 million 10 years, or you bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin 10 years ago, you would have netted yourself 43,000% or something like that. Okay. And that $1 million would have been $10 million or $43 million. Okay. He then went on to say that if you bought $1 million worth of Ethereum 10 years ago, that $1 million would be worth 150 or $200 million, something like that, right? Tom Lee's basically saying that Ethereum has outperformed everything, and it's the asset that is going to continue to outperform. So in other words, that's why he's got this company, Bitwise, as a treasury for Ethereum. Why not Bitcoin? You know, you're going to go with the asset that does well, don't you? That's what you do. You don't support a football team that loses. You support one that wins. Don't give me no loyalty. At the end of the day, the loyalty is every time you turn up to a game and pay for the ticket, football players are getting paid. That's the loyalty bit. All right? You ain't going to support a team that loses. You certainly ain't going to invest into a coin that doesn't generate returns, like XRP. What do you think about XRP? I ain't going to even say it to you, man. Anyways, any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Come on. What we got? What have you got for me? Bitmine, sorry, not Bitwise. Yes, I know, I'm sorry. ETH will lead the altcoin season. Oh, okay, then. Everything is being built on ETH. This is correct. See, if we stay between 100,000 and 111,000, are you saying that we will drop further as it seems we're stuck in the middle for a bit? Yeah, this is what I'm saying to you. If Bitcoin does stay within the 111, listen, from the perspective of the market maker, based off his exposure, okay, 111,000 and 100,000 are the two key price points. You look at that and think, oh my God, that is a bit of a wide range. You know, if I'm using 100x leverage, that is way too much. Yeah, it is. But look how deep the pockets are of the market makers. All right. They've got exposure all over the place, but 111,000 and 100,000 are the two key points, which suggest that if they are, as it stands right now, negative gamma, because Bitcoin's trajectory has been coming lower, if Bitcoin's price goes above 111, market maker will be forced to start buying on spot just to get to the delta neutral, which means to offload the risk that he currently has. All right. Even if market makers do make the markets, they still carry risk, but he has the ability to be able to hedge himself. That's the goal, to get to delta neutral, right? So if it breaks 111,000, you'll start to see some significant activity occurring, which would then suggest the market maker is going on spot just to alleviate the negative gamma and bring it close to delta neutral. Okay. So he's alleviating risk. Equally, if it goes down to 100,000, he will continuously sell into that weakness because that is primarily the position that he was in the first place. So if market maker is net short in terms of selling puts to clients and calls and what have you, all right, he's going to have to sell the underlying, which is Bitcoin, as prices drop, and it could incur an aggressive move lower if it were to go to 100K. So that means it breaks 100K, it could go down lower. Okay. But if it goes to 111,000 and you do start to see price climbing up from there aggressively, then that would solidify the idea that the market maker is having to hedge himself by getting to delta neutral by buying Bitcoin on spot. Okay. So you can effectively have this look. Remember back in the day when we spoke about how there were market makers that were originally short 3,000 contracts on Ethereum. There was a dealer that was short 3,000 contracts on Ethereum, but Ethereum's price kept on rising. So what was that? He had to get to delta neutral and he had to buy Ethereum on spot, which is what forced the squeeze to the upside. And price kept on going higher and higher and higher until the market maker had achieved his delta neutral stance. And then when Ethereum started to turn down, he then started to sell into the weakness of Ethereum, which would then add to his existing position. But he's already maintained delta neutral because of the move to the upside. He offloads those spot positions, starts to sell, and then, of course, Ethereum takes a tumble to the downside. Okay? Tired of the XRP FUD from you, Tino. You are being disingenuous. Come on, man. How can you say that to me? Let's be honest. XRP is the shit. It's the best thing ever. I do the reverse of shilling. I want you to sell it so I can get more of it. That's what you call true shilling for your own. I want you to sell it so I can buy it. I don't get you to buy it. I tell you to sell it. It's all comedy, or I hope it's a bit of comedy, ladies and gentlemen. But, you know, XRP, the future of finance and cross-border payments. And it doesn't flipping move. You've got to accept that you, my friend, calling me disingenuous, we are coming from a place of frustration, my friend. Please. I hear your pain. Anyway, XRP, yes, Solana with the ETF, like GM. Did you watch the advert? Very interesting, to say the least. Max Payne, 114,000, possibly. Yeah. The idea of it, hold on a second, does go in to say the following. Options expiry adds pressure. It says here, Friday expiry could fuel or frustrate that bullish setup. The 114,000 max pain zone remains the magnet level for Bitcoin, suggesting potential sideways movement as traders adjust positions. A clean break above 112 could catch short sellers off guard and spark a rapid short squeeze, which is in line with the market maker's positioning of his option, where he was selling the options to start buying spot Bitcoin to get to delta neutral. Okay, so it's going to be a very key area for Bitcoin, in my opinion. We would need another partnership to come into play for the tech market to sustain the idea of it. But just let me just draw your attention to something. USDT has got a little bit of a clue up there, so just be very mindful of it. There is a vector, there is transactions, there is psychological impressions at this 5.15% region on USDT. So when you see it spiking, they've exchanged in Bitcoin, they've sold it, then they started to buy it at the lowest point. Okay, so logic says that when this USDT starts to go up, Bitcoin's price is going to come down. Okay, so we need to wait for an extreme to be taken first. Use this chart and refer to it in terms of the extremes. Don't focus on the dead price action unless there's vectors. All right, focus on the extremes of where the transactions happen. So in other words, notice how this high right here, and then you've got this high right here. These are points of extremes, okay? That's where the psychology of the market is triggered, because at the end of the day, this goes up when they sell crypto, okay? This goes down when they buy crypto, all right? This is the metric that you're using with that, okay? Tino, do you really think XRP is all about border payment only? Wow, come on. Come on, bro. Do you honestly think I think that? No, I don't think it's just that. All right. I think it's a massive manipulation tool. I think it's just a ploy just to get Ripple to go and buy up all of the stablecoin companies before Circle does or before any other company does. But now you got MasterCard coming in and picking up a cryptocurrency company, Zek, I think it was Zab or something like that. I spoke about it yesterday. I've forgotten. But MasterCard's coming in and playing the stablecoin game. Now, when you've got heavyweights like that, okay, that have got funding galore and institutional backing, and you've got investors, legacy market players, all right, and the MasterCard have come to an idea about something, you know, this is where this game starts to get competitive, all right? So, yeah, thoughts on gold today. You got to be very careful with gold, my friends, because gold itself is getting investors caught up in a little bit of a tricky situation, okay? So if you look at gold's price right now, it's consolidating sideways. The idea that the interest rates may not be getting cut as much, okay, is now fueling the idea of gold consolidating. But mark my words, gold demand is still present. They're just buying it. And you've heard me say this before. They are preparing for the next hedge. Because if we get data next week or whenever the US government shutdown stops, okay, the idea is that gold will then start to shoot back up. Those of you that trade gold have to lean on the idea that when the dollar dominance goes up, gold is coming down. If you look at the dollar dominance right now, you can see that we have got ourselves a bit of an interesting story. It's climbing up. So I said to you, don't sleep on the dollar. It's moving up towards a previous vector candle recovery region over here. Okay, so it is going to start retracing, start going up. But overall, there is sentiment changing in terms of the US dollar, right? Because interest rates are going to be expected to be held, because that's what the expectation is. So that means the yield on the dollar is higher. The yield markets themselves, if you go to the 2-year yield, it's starting to pull back a bit off the back of the idea of Amazon doing well. So investors are like, let's take on some risk. But just pay attention to the dollar and the yields, because if they say to us that we're not getting cuts, gold's price is going to probably start marking lower. But because of the consumption of purchasing right now with gold, okay, means that these guys are effectively preparing for something later on, which is why when I look at gold's price, I say to myself, okay, they're buying it right now. All right. There is a mad gold rush and people are going buying their chains and all that shit. They're buying the bullion and what have you. They're buying it at the worst possible price when it's trading so high. Okay. This is when you start buying it on the pullbacks, because this pullback is motivated by the sentiment in investors who believe the rates are going to be cut or not. We know we're going into a quantitative easing on the 1st of December. So we know that we're going to get cuts in the future. What they're doing now is preparing gold for the move later on. Okay. The same could be applied for Bitcoin. All right. So just take that into consideration when you're looking at investing in gold and, of course, silver as well. Silver's basing out nicely. They're going to be coming back towards these areas as well. You don't move up so significantly for it to just come back down like that. No, this is a play. This is a big play. And with data centers and data mining companies and all the materials they need, why is everything talking about rare earth metals and what you're going to be lacing those rare earth metals with? The greatest conductors on earth, gold and silver. And, you know, it's just all there. Anyways, any other questions other than what are you all going to be wearing tonight for your Halloween? That'll be interesting. Tag me up on X, tag me up on Instagram with your outfits. I don't think anyone can mess with my outfit. I've got 2 axes. I did try and get the gardener's chainsaw, but he was like, no, Tino. No chainsaw. I was like, come on, man. Just let me have it. And just, no. He wouldn't let me do it. This chainsaw. I had to make do with Chucky. Anyways, with that being said, I hope that just gives you some insight. Remember, 111,000 is the key area for Bitcoin. If it can't sustain that, then we're going to have ourselves a little bit of a tricky situation. Okay? I'm going to say bye now because I'm going to end up getting into questions. Okay? Have yourselves a great weekend, guys. Mad love and respect. And I'll be catching up with you all on Monday. Take care. Peace. Now you can get down, man. You're wasting my time.